whenever I got divorced, that was met with confusion, scrutiny. I've really learned to detach from what other people think because I've learned over time that pays dividends every single time. I've also found the friendships I cherish most these days aren't my Friday night friendships, right? They're my Saturday morning, my Sunday morning, my Tuesday at noon friendships. This is what I would like to write and give to younger Alex, and I hope that you took something from it too, or at least it made you think. Welcome back to another episode of Just Alex. Happy summer, you guys. Today's a solo episode. It's actually me and my laptop because I prepped and I wrote a couple things down. And so should me and my pregnancy brain forget, I will refer to the note section here. Okay, so today's episode is 5 things I wish I knew in my 20s. And it kind of comes at a good time because I just had a birthday. I just turned 31. And Harrison said to me on my birthday, he's like, "You have the coolest birthday." And I've had 31 birthdays. And I'm like, why is my birthday cool? And he's like, "It's July 1st. It's halfway through the year. Like, what a cool time to reflect." And I was like, man, I've really never thought of it that way. And the coolest thing happened, though, was on my birthday, my 2 best friends texted me a very similar message. And it was, think about where you were at this time last year and where you are today. And they were like, "I'm so proud of you." And I thought, oh, I never really do have such a monumental difference, right? I mean, this is a big year for me. I'm pregnant. We're moving to a new city. I've started a company. Like, this is definitely a big year. But if you think about where I was last year, I was separated at the time. And I was very much so not blindly following the path, but I did not have any idea where the path I was on was going to lead me. And I don't think God makes mistakes, and you can rephrase that as you don't think the universe makes mistakes, right? If you're not a God person, you're a universe person or what have you. I always think, okay, there's always a method to this madness, right? Everything's compounding and going to land us somewhere. And for me at the time last year, I was like, whoa, it's like I had a blindfold on. I was like, I don't know where you're taking me, but you're taking me somewhere. And now I sit here today and I say, wow, those pieces fell beautifully into place. And I'm really thankful that they did. But listen, none of this would be possible had I not have had the guts to follow through with my divorce. The guts to do all the things leading up to that led me to here. And I'm really thankful for that. So this episode, I think about it as like reflecting on my past, but also things that I would love to tell younger Alex. And this list is partial to me, right? I love to say do it scared. I love to say take chances. I don't love to say I hope your 401k is organized, optimized, and you've got diversified assets. Okay, I'm not that girl for you. So you have to take into account when I say 5 things I wish I knew in my 20s, these are 5 things that really apply to me in the kind of life that I live. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we will dive into them. But with further ado, like and subscribe to the podcast. It's very important. Okay, now let's dive into them. So the first one is live life by your definition of happiness, not others. And it does sound like a Pinterest quote that we've all read a million times, but if we really break it down, I think it packs a punch. And I actually love what it stands for. So living life by your definition, yours, not others. And I think you have to look very closely at people around you, and you have to say maybe that they impact your definition of happiness. So we're going to peel the onion back. I've not always been good at this. I very much so graduated high school, went to college down the road, graduated college and got a job. And I went to work Monday through Friday, went out, did fun things on the weekends, and then like rinse and repeat, did it all again. And I thought that was life. And then around 25, 26, I started doing things, and I don't know where this came from, right? Because hindsight's 20/20. But at the time, there was something in me that was like, we're going to just maybe do things a little differently. And it's been a slow burn because when you do things that make you happy, the inevitable happens. And the inevitable is you're going to disappoint people around you. And you might make people around you feel uncomfortable. But you're not living for anybody but you, right? Like we don't get up in the morning to make sure Sally doesn't feel awkward, right? It's like we get up in the morning to live our life to the truest ability for ourselves. And so whenever I switched careers and I started making content, that was met with scrutiny. I'll never forget people that I went to college with were like unfollowing me because I had gone from just being like a normal Instagram poster that posted, like had a great weekend, to putting videos out, and so I think that was confusing for some people. But me doing that and seeing these people that, were like, I went to date parties with, unfollow me, that kind of stings for a second, right? But you say, I'm not living life for them. I'm living it for me. So you keep going, right? And look, it's my career. Whenever I got divorced, that was met with confusion, scrutiny. But it's like, okay, so what? I stay married for the rest of my life? I make this massive sacrifice just so I don't piss anybody off? It's like, well, that's no way to live. And at every turn when I started this company, moving to Austin, it's like I've really learned to detach from what other people think. And I've really learned to say, okay, what makes Alex happy? What's the best move for Alex? Because I've learned over time that pays dividends every single time. And it really gets me out of my own way and it puts me on the path that I'm supposed to be on. And I think if your happiness relies on the approval of others, then things start happening that are out of your control, right? That puts your happiness out of your control and into other people's hands. And that's a very dangerous place to be because the only person I think you can rely on for happiness at the end of the day is yourself, right? Because the saying is as old as time, money can't buy happiness, right? No follower count can buy happiness. No car can buy none of these exterior things can buy happiness. It has to come from you. And the only way it can come from you is if you put yourself first and you really say, okay, this might make my aunt really mad. She's not going to approve of this decision, but it's a decision I'm willing to make for me. And that's why I think that number one is so important of live life by your definition of happiness, not others, because people, listen, you're not going to please everybody. You're always going to disappoint others. So you might as well not disappoint yourself. I love a Steve Jobs quote, and it says, your time is limited, so don't waste it living somebody else's life. And it's so true. I also often think about friend groups in this regard, right? And when you're in college, you have your friend group, right? And you don't want to be the one that breaks out of that does something just different than everybody else is doing it, right? Because we're all a product of groupthink at this point, right? Because you're like 21, 22. And then somebody goes first and somebody says like, I'm going to move here. I'm moving cities, or I'm taking this like really unconventional job, or I'm going to get married first, and then everybody starts optimizing and living their life for themselves. But if you were the one that never did that, you wake up and you think, oh my gosh, the world's passed me by, right? Like I'm 30 and I haven't done anything for me. I've made every single move up until now based on what other people would think of me. And now I'm a little bit behind. And I think it's a very real feeling that a lot of people face. If you didn't want to stay in one night and study for an exam, instead you wanted to go out while everybody else went out. Well, then you wake up and you're like, well, the world's passed me by, right? So I think make decisions that really make you happy. I think that's very important. And the earlier we could learn that, the more time we'll have to reap the benefits. Okay, number 2 that I would love to tell 21, 22-year-old Alex is take risks. Actually take them, okay? I used to love to listen to How I Built This by Guy Raz. I would clean my house, I would like listen to Boom Chicka Pop, Allbirds, all these companies. I remember just listening and dreaming and thinking it's so cool that these people took all of these risks. Like, oh, what do you mean she maxed out 5 credit cards just to make it work? And then I realized, okay, you could also take those risks. I used to want to start a vegan whipped cream company, and I never did it because I was like, well, that could be risky. And listen, I have actually no regrets in the risk-taking category from about 26 on because I think I took a lot of them. But I would have loved to have told myself earlier, don't be afraid to take risks, because this thought, this bullet point number 2, is anchored by a quote that I heard. I was 24, living in Orange County. I was working at Jennifer Welch Interior Designs, and I was driving to Calabasas for a project. And I remember I was on the highway, and I was listening to the Skinny Confidentials podcast, and Ed Milet was a guest on it. And it was like January 3rd or 4th, and it was their New Year's episode. And Ed said, the biggest breakthrough happens when the fear of doing something becomes less than the fear of not doing it. And I've never forgotten that quote. Like, I think Ed Milet is highly impactful, but this quote, like, I think is probably a top 10 pillar of my life, right? So when the fear or the pain of not doing it becomes bigger than the fear of doing it, that's when change happens. Okay, so there's something in your head lingering that you want to do. I just use content as an example because it's easiest for me. So let's say you want to start making content and you're afraid of what people will think if you do it. Or you want to start that company. You want to quit your job and go into an entirely different field, but you're afraid of what people will think of you. When the fear of not doing it becomes bigger than the fear of doing it, that's when change happens. I think once you hear that quote, then your wheels start to turn. You start to wake up in the middle of the night and be like, there's something I really want to do, but I'm letting what others think of me hold me back. And it's like, no, take the risks, right? Because I'm telling you, when you wake up and these years have gone by, you're going to wish you had the guts to take those risks. And it's kind of compounding here, right? Live life by your definition of others, not by your definition of happiness, not others. And then when you add take risks into that, it's like they actually coincide perfectly. And I know I always say do it scared. And that's because I've been scared so many times, but I have had to familiarize myself, like getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think when you get to that place, then the fear of failing is just kind of like the entry level, right? You're like, okay, I could fail. I could also succeed. But as lofty as it is, we've all heard you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And that's so true. Like, you don't even have a shot at succeeding if you don't try it. So you might as well, I always think, you might as well just try it. So what I would tell little 22-year-old Alex is don't be afraid to take the risk. My last little thing on risk is even if you take the risk and fail, there's so much you learn from that failure. Like, failure is required. If you start taking risks, there's going to be some failure that happens, right? It's not going to be like, I want to launch a soda pop and then boom, you launch it and like there's never a bad day. No, but that's where your wisdom comes from, is these failures. And I think that you gain a lot of self-confidence by saying, hey, I had the guts to try that and I failed. So what? Now I know I can try something else and I'm not as afraid to fail, right? Because I know what that feels like, but what if I succeed? And so failure is, I think, I truly think failure is a beautiful gift. So that's a perfect segue into number 3, which is be patient. And Bezos has a great quote on this one, which is every overnight success took about 10 years. And here's what I think about I still have to exercise patience every day because when it comes to my career, right? I haven't achieved, like, I'm chipping away at the list, but boy, it's long and we are not even 10% there, I don't think. And it's like, I have to remind myself every day, like, it is a patience game. You take Martha Stewart, for example. I love this one. She was 41 when she did her first cookbook, right? So it's like we're constantly building, and it takes a ton of patience and pivoting. And the good news is the journey, they say, is oftentimes the best part, right? They say the day the payoff comes, you think, man, what do I do now? So the good news is while we're on the journey, it is to be enjoyed. But the thing I think about patience is I think sometimes we think things will A, be easy, and B, they will be an overnight success. But any time we think, oh, she came out of nowhere, or that company came out of nowhere, they just popped up out of nowhere. You go back and you look, right? And maybe it's 2024, and it says founded in 2014. They've been building for 10 years, right? And then one day they threw something at the wall and it stuck and it worked. But had they have not had those 10 years before of iterating, trying, then it's like there is no such thing as just overnight success or something being easy. And so I'm still learning this one on patience and practicing it every day. But I wish I could tell my younger self, be patient and just relax and enjoy the ride, right? Because you can't rush things. You can't cut corners. And it's going to take time because really, truly, the best things in life, they take time. So we can all be patient together. I'm still a WIP work in progress on that one. Okay. Number 4. This is probably the one I would want to tell myself the loudest. And when I told myself this one, I'd want to sit her down and I would want to say, listen to me like you've never listened to anyone before. And here's what number 4 is. Financial literacy is crucial. Okay? I'm so behind in this category of understanding something called an appreciating asset. Okay? There are, like, I am playing a little bit of catch up here, investments, getting things organized. But I wish I would have actually saved like 30% of my paycheck right after I graduated. I wish I would have invested in more things. I don't know, times that I wish maybe I didn't buy a brand new car and really understood the true value of $1 and the true value of saving. And I think understanding finances when you're younger is like somewhat of a short-term pain for a really long-term gain. And I think while I've started now, and we had our budget episode, it's just you do see the value of a year. And you do see the value of actually saving the $1. And so I just say to myself, man, if I just would have started that at, 21, what a big difference that would have made. So I do think I sit here and say this also, it's never too late, right? Like figure it out and make the change now because we do have a lot of life left. And we've got little humans that are going to come into the world. But Harrison actually, for example here, is somebody who I really look up to in this regard because I don't actually haven't dug enough into this, but it does appear during college. Like he had a great job, and I actually always worked, but I had internships in college. But he had a great job during college, saved money during college, right out of just kind of did this path a lot differently than I did. And so I just wish I had more of an understanding around how important saving was back in the day. I did read a study. I think I was like 25 or someone told it to me. But most people at 25 don't have more than $100 in their savings account. I don't know if that's true or not, but don't live that recklessly. I was better than that, I will say that. And this is all assuming that you are, like a disclaimer here, in the position to save, because sometimes you do have to live paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes in order to pay the bills or to pay for family or do things like that, you do have to make those sacrifices. So if you are in the position to save, that is what I would tell my younger self. And then bullet point number 5 is there's a lot more to life than partying. So I've said this for about 2 years. And so I don't believe that it's a lofty statement, but I've never regretted a night that I stayed in. Because what I've realized is going out and partying is fun. Of course it's fun. Like I'm probably more social than you that's listening to this. Maybe not, maybe some of you are more social. But I would say 80% of you, I'm a bit more social. But I think life starts to pass you by if being social is at the epicenter of the universe. And I think I had a very normal relationship with this of like loved going out, also loved career, and now at 31, I'm like, it's not everything. But I would want to tell my younger self this because I would want her to know to start staying in a bit sooner. Start prioritizing Saturday morning over Friday night, right? Because the payoff there pays dividends 10x, right? And so I've also found the friendships I cherish most these days aren't my Friday night friendships, right? They're my Saturday morning, my Sunday morning, my Tuesday at noon friendships. And there's a lot more depth to those. And I think that a lot of you listening probably feel the exact same way, right? You have your social friends. You have your absolutely not social friends. And then you have your ones that bleed into both categories. And for me, the ones that sat solely in social, I found to be further away from those people now because I think priorities shift the older that we get. And the most fulfilled, when I ask myself, when do I feel most fulfilled in life? It's never been at a club in Miami at 1 a.m. Now, there's a time and a place for that, right? I'm not saying never go out. I'm just saying you have to start to optimize your life. If it's a pie chart, for me, it's like 80% of this isn't going out, right? Right now, none of it is. But I think being social is super important. But I think partying becomes less and less of a focal point of life the older that we get. So just telling myself, like maybe I would have made that change just a little sooner in life because I do realize the less that I partied, the more strides I made in other areas of my life, right? And I think you guys have heard Harrison talk about his buckets. And so I've started making buckets in my life of like things that are important. And I've never had a bucket even pop into my mind that was titled partying, right? I do have a bucket that's like social and friends, but that very much so can be like, you can have a really, really, really fun Friday night dinner. Then you guys can go to like bars afterwards, go to someone's house. Like you can go to clubs too, right? I'm just saying it can't be every weekend. We really have to get that confined into a box. Then we make strides in other areas. So those are the 5 buckets. Let's go through them again. Live life by your definition of happiness, not others. Take risks. You're going to fail, but take the risk because the fear of not taking the risk will become bigger than the fear of failing. Be patient. Good things truly take time and enjoy the process because Rome wasn't built in a day. I don't really think anything that was worth standing or worth going and seeing was built in a day. Financial literacy is so crucial. And number 5, there is more to life than partying. And thank God for that because it is exhausting. So that's it. Those are my 5. I would love to know if you had a different one. Like a really big one. DM it to me because I'd love to read it. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I would like to write and give to younger Alex. But instead, I will take it with me through my 30s. And I hope that you took something from it too, or at least it made you think. So I love you guys very much. And I will see you next week. Okay, guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Just Alex, powered by Just Media House. If you enjoyed the show, which I think you did because you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. All of those things are so important. Stay connected on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Just Alex Pod. Post-production by Creative Evolution Studios. Theme song to the Just Alex Pod by Gideon Shawkin and Denisha. I'm Just Alex, you're just you. Let's keep doing this thing. New episodes every Thursday.